Ladon, the oldest dragon in Greek mythology, isn't the most fearsome, but it might be the most tragic. Ladon coiled endlessly around the tree of the Hesperides at the western edge of the known world, guarding golden apples that granted immortality. Ancient sources disagree on exactly what it looked like. Hesiod describes a single enormous serpent, while later poets gave it 100 heads, each speaking in a different voice. Either way, it met its end when Heracles arrived as part of his 11th labor, slaying the dragon and stealing the apples. According to tradition, the gods honored Ladon by placing it in the night sky as the constellation Draco, where it coils to this day between the Big and Little Dippers, still guarding something it can no longer reach. Python. Before Delphi was the most sacred oracle site in the ancient world, it belonged to Python. This enormous earth dragon was born from the mud and rot left behind by the Great Flood, and it coiled itself around the navel of the world at Mount Parnassus, guarding the site with its sheer, suffocating mass. The young god Apollo killed it with a volley of arrows and claimed the oracle for himself. But even in victory, Apollo owed a debt. The Pythian Games were held every 4 years in Python's honor as a form of divine atonement, and the priestesses who channeled the oracle's prophecies were called the Pythia, named directly after the dragon rotting beneath their feet. The victor inherits everything, including the name of what he destroyed. Hydra. The Lernaean Hydra lives in the swamps near Lerna in ancient Greece, and it came with a built-in failsafe. Cut off one head, 2 grow back. Heracles discovered this the hard way during his second labor, hacking away while the wound counts only kept rising. The solution was brutal and practical. His nephew Iolaus followed behind with a torch, cauterizing each stump the moment a head fell, sealing the flesh before the regrowth could begin. All except the 9th, central head, which was immortal and simply could not be killed. Heracles buried it under a boulder and moved on, but the Hydra got the last word. Heracles dipped his arrows in its toxic blood, and years later, one of those same poisoned arrows caused his own agonizing death. The monster outlasted the hero who killed it, Nidhugger. In Norse cosmology, the world tree Yggdrasil holds everything together, 9 worlds suspended in its branches and roots. Nidhugger spends eternity trying to undo that. Gnawing ceaselessly at Yggdrasil's deepest root from the darkness below, its name translates roughly to Malice Striker, and the intent is exactly that: slow, patient destruction of cosmic order. According to the Völuspá, one of the oldest surviving Norse poems, Nidhugger is still gnawing when Ragnarok finally arrives, and then, uniquely, it survives. While gods die and the world burns and floods, Nidhugger emerges from the chaos flying on dark wings, carrying corpses in its feathers. It is one of the only beings in Norse mythology to outlast the end of everything. Entropy, apparently, does not end. Jormungandr. Jormungandr grows so large in the depths of the ocean that it encircles the entire world and bites down on its own tail. According to the prose Edda, it is the child of Loki and the giantess Angerboda, and Odin threw it into the sea the moment he learned what it was. That did not help. Its destined opponent is Thor, and the outcome of their meeting at Ragnarok is already fixed. Thor kills the world serpent, but walks exactly 9 steps before collapsing from its venom. Not 10. 9. The moment Jormungandr releases its tail is the moment the world ends. Its writhing in the deep already causes the storms and earthquakes of the mortal world. It is not a monster that attacks civilization. It is the reason civilization feels so fragile. Tiamat. Tiamat may be the oldest dragon in recorded human history. She appears in the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic dating to at least 1200 BCE, and possibly much earlier, as a vast primordial dragoness representing the salt ocean and chaos before creation. The younger gods grew loud and disruptive, and Tiamat went to war with them. The god Marduk killed her, and then did something specific with the body. He split her in 2. One half became the sky, the other became the earth. The clouds are her breasts, the mountains are her head. Every time you look at the horizon, according to ancient Babylon, you are looking at the divided corpse of a dragon. Creation was not built. It was carved out of something that fought back. Apep. Every single night in ancient Egyptian belief, the sun god Ra sailed his bark through the underworld, and every single night, Apep was waiting. An enormous serpent of pure chaos and darkness, Apep, also called Apophis, attacked Ra during the 12 hours of darkness in an attempt to swallow the sun permanently and end the world. And every morning that the sun rose was proof the attack had failed again. What makes Apep genuinely unsettling in mythological terms is that it was never truly defeated, only repelled, night after night for eternity. Egyptian priests performed daily rituals from the Book of Apep, burning effigies, spitting, reciting curses, to help Ra survive the journey. Its roar was said to cause earthquakes. There is no version of this story where Apep stops trying. Leviathan. In the book of Job, God describes Leviathan to a suffering man as proof that divine power exceeds human comprehension. The description in chapters 40 and 41 is precise and intentional. Smoke pours from its nostrils. Flames shoot from its mouth. Its underside is like jagged pottery shards dragging across the ground, and the ocean itself boils in its wake. No weapon made by human hands can pierce it. No rope can bind it. In later Jewish tradition, recorded in the Talmud, Leviathan's story has a specific ending. At the end of days, God slays it, and its flesh is served as a feast to the righteous. The monster that represents the terrifying scale of creation becomes, eventually, the main course. Azi Dahaka. Azi Dahaka is not quite a dragon, and not quite a man, which is what makes him so disturbing. In Zoroastrian tradition and the Persian epic Shahnameh, written by Ferdowsi around 1000 CE, Dahaka is a tyrant king with two serpents growing directly from his shoulders, a curse placed on him by an evil spirit disguised as a cook. The serpents had to be fed human brains every day, or they would turn on Dahaka himself. He reigned for 1,000 years of misery before the hero Feridun defeated him and imprisoned him inside Mount Damavand, a volcanic peak still visible in northern Iran today. He was not killed. According to tradition, at the end of the world, his chains will break, and he will escape to devour a third of humanity before finally being destroyed. Vritra. In the Rig Veda, one of the oldest religious texts in the world, Vritra is the dragon of drought, a cosmic serpent who has coiled himself around the world's mountains and blocked every river simultaneously, causing a catastrophic, total drought across the earth. The storm god Indra arms himself with the Vajra, a thunderbolt weapon forged specifically for this fight, and kills Vritra in a confrontation that reads less like a battle and more like a weather event. The rivers burst free the moment Vritra dies. Many scholars interpret Vritra as a mythological description of the monsoon cycle, the drought that builds, and the explosive storm that breaks it, which means this dragon may have been humanity's attempt to explain the sky itself. Naga. The Naga are not one dragon, but an entire civilization of them. In Hindu and Buddhist tradition, across South and Southeast Asia, Nagas are divine serpent beings who rule vast kingdoms beneath rivers, lakes, and the sea, ranging from fully serpentine to half-human in form, and capable of tremendous benevolence or terrible destruction, depending entirely on how they are treated. Shesha, also called Ananta, meaning endless, is the greatest of them, a many-headed cosmic serpent on whose coils the god Vishnu rests between the destruction and recreation of the universe. In Buddhist tradition, the Naga king Mukalinda spread his cobra hood over the meditating Buddha to shelter him from a 7-day storm. Naga worship remains active across South and Southeast Asia today, making these the most continuously venerated dragons on this list. Long. The Chinese Long is the dragon that breaks every Western assumption about what a dragon is. It does not hoard gold, does not breathe fire, and is not the villain. It is the bringer of rain, the guardian of rivers, the symbol of imperial power, and, crucially, a source of good fortune. Its body combines the most powerful animals in Chinese cosmology: the scales of a fish, the claws of an eagle, the antlers of a deer, and the sinuous length of a serpent. Emperors were considered its earthly embodiment and wore 5-clawed dragon robes to mark their status. Nobility wore 4 claws. The Long Kings ruled the 4 seas from underwater palaces. The dragon has 9 sons, each with distinct personalities and functions, their images still visible on temple architecture, bridges, and palace gates across China today. Jiaolong. The Jiaolong occupies a specific and uncomfortable place in Chinese dragon mythology. It is what a dragon is before it becomes something greater. Described in classical texts as a water dragon lurking in rivers and floodplains, the Jiaolong is a lesser creature still in the process of spiritual cultivation, requiring 1,000 years of practice before it can ascend to become a full Long. In the meantime, it causes trouble. Floods, droughts, disasters. Some texts describe it as capable of transforming into a beautiful woman to lure travelers near water. The name translates roughly to flood dragon or scaly dragon, and its reputation is that of something powerful but unfinished, dangerous not from malice, but from the specific volatility of potential not yet realized. Ryu. The Japanese Ryu descends directly from the Chinese Long, but became distinctly its own creature, most visibly in its 3 toes, compared to China's imperial 5. The most important Ryu in Japanese mythology is Ryujin, the Dragon King, who lives in an underwater palace called Ryugu-jo, built from red and white coral, ruling the tides with 2 magical jewels, the Kanju and Manju tidestones, which control the rise and fall of the ocean. His daughter's connection to a human hero forms the core of the Urashima Taro legend, one of Japan's most enduring folktales. The Ryu appears throughout Shinto shrine architecture and Buddhist imagery, and the roar of a storm over the ocean is still associated with its voice. Imugi. In Korean tradition, the Imugi is a dragon that has not earned the right to be one yet. It is a massive, ancient serpent living patiently in rivers or the sea for 1,000 years, waiting for a single event: the fall of a Yuiju, a magical orb said to descend from the sky, which the Imugi must catch to finally transform into a Yong, the Korean equivalent of the fully ascended dragon. No orb, no transformation. The Imugi simply remains what it is: vast and ancient and waiting, potentially forever. There is something quietly devastating about a creature defined entirely by what it has not yet become, and something unexpectedly hopeful about the fact that the orb, according to tradition, can still fall at any time. Wrong. The Vietnamese dragon is not just a mythological creature, it is a family member. The Vietnamese people have a phrase, Con Rong Chao Tien, meaning children of the dragon and the fairy, tracing the nation's ancestry directly to the dragon, Lord Lac Long Quan, and the fairy O Ko, who had 100 children together and founded the Vietnamese people. The Rong itself is visually distinct from its Chinese cousin, longer and more sinuous, without wings, and crowned with a crest of flame rather than antlers, a design visible in the carved stonework of the Hue Imperial City and temples across Hanoi. The dragon and the Vietnamese nation are not just symbolically connected. According to the founding myth, they are the same bloodline. Druk. Bhutan's official name in the Dzongkha language is Druk Yul, land of the thunder dragon. The Druk is not a metaphor or a mascot. It is the central organizing image of a nation. Thunder rolling across the Himalayas is described as the dragon's roar echoing between peaks, and the white Druk appears on Bhutan's national flag clutching jewels in its claws, symbols of wealth and perfection, against a background split between orange and yellow. In Tibetan Buddhism, dragon imagery represents the protection of sacred teachings and the power that guards the Dharma from forces that would corrupt it. Of all the dragons on this list, the Druk has the most active civic life. It runs a country. Naga Padoha. In the cosmology of the Batak people of Sumatra, Indonesia, the earth does not rest on bedrock. It rests on Naga Padoha, a vast sea dragon coiled in the underworld beneath everything. When Naga Padoha moves, the ground above shakes, a mythological explanation for the earthquakes that regularly strike one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. According to Batak tradition, the god Batara Guru imprisoned the dragon with an iron sword, pinning it in place, but the chains are imperfect. Naga Padoha shifts. Naga Padoha writhes. And occasionally, the earth above reminds you that what you are standing on was never as stable as you assumed. Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is a dragon built from the logic of synthesis. Combine the Quetzal bird, which flies at the highest altitudes in Mesoamerica, with the Coatl serpent, which moves along the ground, and you get a single creature that unites sky and earth. In Nahuatl, Quetzal means feathered and precious. Coatl means serpent. The result, venerated across the Toltec and Aztec civilizations, is a feathered serpent associated with wind, learning, the morning star Venus, and the gift of maize to humanity. Unlike most dragons on this list, Quetzalcoatl is primarily a creator, a god who gave things rather than devoured them. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent at Teotihuacan, built around 200 CE, still stands, its stone facade covered in carved serpent heads, staring out from the oldest urban center in the Americas. Amaru. The Amaru of Andean mythology is a two-headed serpent dragon that lives at the boundary between the upper world and the underworld, a liminal creature associated with water, transformation, and the specific kind of chaos that arrives when hidden things surface. According to Quechua tradition, when the Amaru rises from underground lakes and rivers, floods follow. The city of Cusco contained a sacred district called Amaru Concha, the enclosure of the serpent, marking the dragon's place within the Inca Empire's sacred geography. The Spanish colonial period largely suppressed Amaru veneration, but the creature survived in oral tradition. Two heads facing opposite directions, one toward the world above, one toward the world below, never quite belonging to either. Wyvern. The wyvern is the dragon that medieval European heralds took seriously enough to argue about in legal documents. Unlike the four-legged fire-breathing dragon of popular imagination, the wyvern has only two legs, uses its wings as forelimbs, and in most heraldic traditions lacks fire breath entirely, relying instead on venom and a barbed tail. The distinction mattered enormously to heralds. Placing a wyvern on a coat of arms instead of a dragon was a factual error, not an aesthetic choice, and medieval roles of arms treated them as categorically different animals. Associated with pestilence and plague in medieval bestiaries, the wyvern was not a symbol of power, but of infection, the thing that moves through populations invisibly until it is already too late. Lindworm. The lindworm appears in Scandinavian folklore as a serpentine dragon with vestigial arms but no legs, usually roaming forests or demanding brides from villages unfortunate enough to be nearby. Its most famous appearance is in a folktale classified by researchers as tale type ATU 433b. A prince cursed into lindworm form can only be broken by a bride, clever and patient, enough to have him shed his dragon skins one by one, while she adds layers of her own clothing in turn, until the curse collapses and a man stands in the lindworm's place. It is, underneath the scales, a story about someone trapped inside something monstrous, waiting for a person willing to stay through the process. Folklorists have documented versions of this tale across Scandinavia, Germany, and the British Isles. Zmey Gorynych. Zmey Gorynych is Russia's dragon, and it operates like one. 3 heads, all breathing fire simultaneously. Cut one off, and depending on which version of the byliney epic poems you are reading, 2 grow back immediately. It kidnaps women, burns villages to ash, and represents, in Slavic tradition, the chaotic force that civilization must constantly push back against. Its name combines Zmey, meaning serpent, with Gorynych, derived from Gora, meaning mountain. The mountain serpent, a creature as old and immovable as the landscape itself. Its recurring slayer in Russian epic tradition is the bogatyr Dobrynya Nikitich, a hero defined largely by the fact that he keeps having to fight this same dragon and keeps winning, which suggests Zmey Gorynych keeps surviving too. Why Dragok? The red dragon of Wales has been flying on flags for over 1,000 years, which makes it one of the longest continuously used national symbols in the world. Its origin story, recorded in Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britannia around 1136 CE, and echoed in the Mabinogion, describes a red dragon representing the native Britons locked in underground combat with a white dragon representing the invading Saxons. The seer Merlin, called Myrddin in Welsh tradition, prophesied that the red dragon would ultimately prevail. The screams of the fighting dragons underground were causing crop failures and widespread misery until a ritual imprisoned them both beneath a hill. The red dragon on the Welsh flag today, against its background of green and white, is that same imprisoned dragon finally freed and winning. Mushushu. The Mushushu is the only dragon on this list you can go see in a museum. Constructed under Nebuchadnezzar II around 575 BCE, the Ishtar Gate of Babylon was covered in rows of animals rendered in brilliant lapis, lazuli blue, and golden yellow, and among them, repeated in precise detail, was the Mushushu, a creature with the scaled body of a serpent, the forelegs of a lion, the hind legs of an eagle, a horned head, and a scorpion's tail. It served as the divine animal of Marduk, the chief god of Babylon, and later of the god Nabu. The tiles were excavated in the early 20th century and reconstructed at the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, where they remain today. The oldest architecturally documented dragon in human history is on display. You can buy a ticket. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.